Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined today by Joe Merrick of Serebii.net to discuss the latest Pokémon Sun and Moon trailer. There's a lot to cover, so let's just get right to it. Alright Joe, well, as we were talking about before, August is typically the big month for Pokemon as far as the big news to come out, and while I was caught off guard with just how much was shown in this trailer and how much this all means for the series, you were kind of expecting something big for this month. So just right off the bat, what was your overall impression of everything revealed for Pokemon Sun and Moon?
I'm very impressed. I'm really happy with everything that has been shown. I mean, I was expecting them to reveal what the deal was with the bracelets this month because, as I've said before, Mega Evolution was revealed in August 2013. But I'm just stunned. They revealed quite a lot. And this is after me saying they're not revealing anything about the actual games. And now it's like, whoa, there's a lot here.
Yeah, no, they just was like, okay, well, here's how the game is basically going to play. Like, they gave us the structure of what you're going to be doing, at least an idea of it. And there's still a lot more to go around that. But yeah, I was just impressed with the trailer. It was interesting. It was flashy. The Japanese trailer was actually quite different with how much different footage they showed. It all came together rather well. And on the whole, I'm excited just about every single thing they showed off about this. This is looking to be a fantastic generation.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've not been this excited for quite a while, and I was really excited for X and Y, but this is just all new, and it's like, I love it, but I'm terrified.
There's going to be so much. Oh, boy. So, let's just get right into it. We're going to go along because the reason it took so long for us to get to this discussion is because, one, you were busy, and two, I was working my butt off on this analysis, and I really wanted to talk about a lot of the things I was finding within the analysis and get your opinions of it as well. So, usually I don't plug it that much as far as trying to, being a necessity for these discussions, but with so much in there, I thought it was probably pertinent to have a basic idea. So let's just jump right into it, and we have Alola Forms. And before we get into the specifics, what do you think of this concept of Alola having unique forms for previous Pokemon that changes up their appearance, their typings, and even their abilities?
I think it's amazing. I mean, I was reading up on Hawaii a while back once Alola was announced, and there were mentions about how various species in Hawaii evolved slightly differently to how they did in mainland North America and mainland Asia and so forth. So part of me thought, what if they're going to do something like that to this? And they did, and they've done it in an amazing way. I thought it would just be like with Arbok, because Arbok is meant to have different patterns, and I thought maybe it'll be like the Orange Islands, because in the Orange Islands in the anime there were slight variations, but this is a massive new level, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree. I have never seen people excited about an Executor, well, ever. It's weird. It's like there's this goofy Pokemon that nobody's ever really paid attention to that I could tell, other than just how weird it is, and all of a sudden it's become the poster child of this latest trailer. And I kind of love it for that. All those memes and GIFs that are coming out about how long its neck is. It's amazing. And as many people pointed out, I incorrectly attributed the design of it to the old Jungle Booster card. There is no inspiration taken from that. Instead, it apparently came from the Pokedex of Ruby and Sapphire and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, where they do mention that Executor's necks will grow longer if it's exposed to strong sunlight. Which, man, Game Freak is on the ball with callbacks and just pulling off these little ideas that they've sprinkled throughout the series. And okay, let's actually do something with this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love that they do that. I mean, just look at Muna from Gen 5, because that was referenced. And I don't know if this is a reference to Executor, but in Lily Cove City, in the hotel, there's a painting on the background which has a very large palm tree looking thing. It's looking back on it now, it's is that actually a palm tree? Or were they hinting? It's probably a palm tree, let's face it, but still.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's palm tree still works out for Alola, but still, just all those little things they can do, and man, and everybody's just giving it heck for how is it a dragon type? Which it's whatever to me, but I just find it really funny that people would just sort of Like Charizard, not a dragon. Executor, Alola Executor, dragon. Oh boy, but I mean, as far as a Pokemon on its own, like as far as being able to battle, what do you think of Executor? Do you think it's like something viable?
Well, it's got the 4 times weakness to ice now, which could be iffy. But standard Executor has always been a bit, It's not really something you'd want to go full out with, but it's got its uses, and hopefully this will have some decent uses. I mean, that's what I think these Alola Forms are, because I think they're bringing some of the older Pokemon, which you may not be able, well, you would be able to use, you may not be able to properly, competitively use, because they're not exactly viable. Like Sandslash, for example. Sandslash is one of my favourite Kanto Pokemon, but it's just useless. It pains me to say that, but Sandslash is useless, but now it might have a shot.
Although you do have to be concerned for now it has a 4 times weakness to fire.
Fighting. And fighting.
Oh, geez, yeah. So I'm not quite sure how useful it'll be, but it's still, I like the design at the very least.
Oh, absolutely.
It all looks cool. Now, going back to Executor real quick, we see in the trailer, in the Japanese trailer, just normal Execute. How do you think they're going to handle evolution with Executor? Because is it going to be just Execute has a chance to be like the Alolan Executor, or it has a chance to be the normal one? Or the idea I raised in the analysis was maybe you find a strong source of sunlight and evolve it there, and you'll get your Executor.
It could be that it's like a different evolution method, and like with this, you might be able to have like essentially split evolution without actually having a separate Pokemon. Or it could just be that if Execute was born in, well, maybe not born, but created and caught in the Alola region, then it'll just automatically evolve into that.
That could be, but I want to say there has to be a way to get both the standard Executor and the Alolan Executor within the same game. It seems weird not to be able to do that. Plus, they do show off Executor. God, it's so weird to say. Like, I want to just say Executor, but there's 2 of them now, so I gotta specify. But they do show the standard Executor within the Alolan Pokédex during the Japanese trailer. Like, not his entry or anything like that, but just his like animation of him just moving around. So I have to imagine there has to be some way in there. Although you could be right, it could be just traded over from X and Y or something like that.
Yeah, it's really impossible to say right now. I mean, chances are you're not going to be able to change these forms. They're going to be that as standard, so it'd be like Shellos and Gastrodon. Or it could be whatever form the mother has when you breed, it'll be that form when it hatches. But with Execute, you won't know, so it would. So a better comparison for that would probably be Scatterbug, because you never know what form it will evolve into if you got it in a trade.
Yeah,
Villon.
That makes sense. So, I'm very curious about that. And one thing I didn't even think of that was brought to my attention afterwards is Vulpix, because Vulpix evolves with a Firestone, which I just kind of slipped my mind on top of everything else. So I can't imagine Alola Vulpix evolving into Alola Ninetales with a Firestone. So the only thing that came to my mind is maybe it uses the Icy Rock like Glaceon.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense.
I mean, do you think they might introduce a new evolutionary stone, or maybe it'll evolve naturally? I'm not sure.
I don't want to say authoritatively, because they've just been so out there with everything. It's like, you can't guess what they're going to do anymore, can you?
Yeah, not really. Oh, man, there's just so many possibilities. But, oh, man, I think out of all of the new Alolan forms that we've seen, Vulpix and Ninetales are probably my favorite. Like, I already kind of love these 2 to begin with, but I don't know, there's something about Ninetales' new design and the way it sort of like turns up its head during the trailer and like has this really prideful moment. It's like, dang, I kind of like this thing. It just sort of appeals to me, and to have that like Ice Fairy typing, as many people have pointed out, like this thing is a dragon killer.
Yeah. definitely true. I mean, my favourite's probably Sandshrew. It's an igloo.
Yeah, it's an igloo. It's an igloo who can do curling.
Exactly. Can't go wrong with that.
No, not at all. And I mean, it looks cool. I just love how clever the designs are. And there are like snowy places within Hawaii and Alola, so it actually makes sense to see them again, as you say, evolve differently. Like actual evolution. This is what's going on with these guys, which is kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's hard to make up a team so far, which is not without knowing exactly what's there. But do you think any of these would be worthwhile on your team?
Well, Ice type has always been a really dodgy competitive type. It's just always the brunt of many jokes because it's just so weak sometimes, and it's not the best defensive type. But I'd like to try out Sandslash. I imagine it would be nice in a Trick Room team because it does say that for Sandshrew at least it's slower than a normal Sandshrew, and same with Sandslash. So Trick Room team, put a Sandslash in. Hopefully it will have decent attack. Yeah,
that would do the trick. Now there actually was a hint potentially for another Alolan Pokemon. And it was mentioned on the Pokemon website that Kyove, one of the new trial captains, actually has a Marowak, which it seems weird for a captain specializing in fire-type Pokemon to have a ground type on his team. So I came up with the idea of maybe it's going to be a fire type, and I was just looking at its bone that it always has. I'm like, it would actually make sense to light that bone on fire and become a fire twirler. And
that would be awesome.
I was just going to get your opinion on that crazy idea of mine. Do you think that might be possible, or do you think they'll be changing it up with trial captains not necessarily having Pokemon that they specialize in?
Well, it did say about specialties and types, and it would make sense really for him to have a Marowak and it not be at least part fire type. But I think it would be nice, but I want to see as many Alolan forms as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. And the one common thing I've been noticing with all these forms is that they're all first-gen Pokemon. Do you think it's only going to be the first-gen, or do you think they might spread it out a bit?
Well, the thing is with the first-gen Pokemon is there has been a power creep with the various Pokemon as the generations have gone on. Mm-hmm. And so many of the Pokemon from the original generation are no longer viable. And so with Mega Evolutions, this kind of improved a few, and now Alola Forms, that could also help. It can make some Pokemon back into the public consciousness, make them viable again. So it could be like Mega Evolution, mostly Kanto Pokemon.
Okay, and that would make sense, to just sort of level the playing field once again and bring in those Pokemon that people grew up with. Well, many people grew up with, at least. There's a new generation of kids for each generation of Pokemon, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited for these new Alolan Pokemon. I think they all look great. The thing is, like, seeing all the Pokemon being introduced, I want to try out all of them on my team. Like, man, how am I going to pull this off to like figure out which ones I want to try? Because there's I think the quality of Pokemon introduced this generation is wonderful.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few people like be down on it, but that's going to be every generation. There's always people who's like, this is stupid. These look dumb. And I'm like, you teach your own. But let's move on to the brand new Pokemon that we got this set. So first up, we have Oricorio, which is kind of an ingenious idea to have a dancing Pokemon with each different dance style being a different type. So we got fire flying, electric flying, psychic flying, and ghost flying, which are interesting combinations. And it could be a very viable Pokemon. I'm not sure exactly how viable it'll be, but it definitely has my interest.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's essentially 4 Pokemon in one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could easily, like, kind of like Eevee, you could have most of a team made up of just Oricorio.
Yeah, although that wouldn't be allowed in like official competitions because unlike the evolutions, this is only one Pokédex number, which is a shame. Because I wouldn't mind having a team of these, even though there'd be a significant rock type weakness to it.
Yeah, I mean there would be a issue to that, but I don't know. If you want to have a dancing team, that's not a bad idea. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like Tierno, that's it. I've completely blanked on his name. He's missed his opportunity. This should have been his generation, all these at Oricorio.
Yeah, and in double battles with the dancer ability, if he could set one of his Pokemon off to do Swords Dance, and that will do a Swords Dance as well, and still attack. And that's an amazing competitive ability.
Oh god, yeah. Especially like how, it's anyone on the field, so if anybody uses it, it can happen, but you can also just set it up within yourself, get that Swords Dance out, and have it ready to use a strong attack type move, and you're set. Oricorio could be a wonderful partner Pokemon for double battles.
Oh, absolutely. And with the official format being double battles, hopefully it will stay the same, because single battles is a bit less balanced. But double battles, with that, get your Dragon Dance, get your Quiver Dance, get your Swords Dance, get your Teeter Dance, and that's just carnage.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, do you think you would, the way you said that, did you spread that among different Pokemon, or would you have like one Pokemon just have dance moves so you could power up Oricorio?
I'd use it in different combinations, or I'd just get a Smeargle with 3 of them and Dark Void just for lols.
There you go. That's pretty awesome. So let's go to through these forms one by one. We have the one that I completely butchered the pronunciation of, and I'm trying to remember what everybody said is the proper pronunciation for it, and I'm blanking. But Bele, I believe, or Bele, one of the two. The flamenco dancing form of Oricorio.
Yeah. Fire Flying type, that's a decent type. You've got Charizard of that type, you've got Moltres, you've got Ho-Oh. It's a bit weak to Rock, though, which might hamper it competitively, considering the dominance of Rock Slide. But it's definitely a cool Pokemon. It's got a nice style to it.
Yeah, I believe in X and Y I had a Talonflame on my team, and I greatly enjoyed Talonflame because it was interesting to have a starter bird type actually get another type other than normal flying in that generation. But so I can see the viability of fire flying, but I'm not sure I would use it too much because, again, that rock type weakness would be pretty major.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but I do like the dance. Like I love how it has the curls. I love how it has the little like hair palm from the flamenco dancers. Like the style of this Oricorio is great.
It really is.
And then we have Pom Pom style. We got our own personal cheerleader here with an electric flying typing, which is kind of wonderful, honestly.
Yeah, it looks so happy.
It does.
It just wants you to succeed.
If you're feeling glum, it'll be your personal cheerleader. And I think everybody had that cheerleader song in their head once they saw Pom Pom Oricorio. Oh shoot! Now, the only electric flying type that I could think of off the top of my head is Zapdos and Pachirisu. Are there any others?
Emolga, not Pachirisu.
That's right. I mixed them up. Sorry.
Yeah.
How viable are they? Because I didn't really use Emolga because, well, it didn't evolve and didn't get any stronger. So, yeah.
They're pretty viable. Zapdos you'll see commonly in competitive teams, but that's more down to just its stats. It does come down to stats a bit. We need to see. I mean, there's also Fan Rotom, which is electric flying, but that's ridiculous because it also has Levitate.
Oh, jeez.
And of course, Thundurus.
Yes, Thundurus. Yeah, a lot of electric flying seems to be in the legendary or mythical Pokemon where they do have higher stats. So it actually makes me wonder again with Oricorio, will it have the same stats relatively across all forms, or will each form have its own sort of stats that they build off of?
That's a very interesting thing, because the different forms of Rotom have all got the same stats apart from the original one, but other Pokemon with different forms, they do change the stats. And with Oricorio, it does seem like, say, Pom Pom style would be a bit faster than the others, because cheerleading's a lot more energetic than, say, the Hawaiian dancing. Yeah,
and that makes sense, yeah. Huh. And that's the funny thing, I can show you all this information, but then there's always like, I wonder what this would do, or how does this work, or how would it be, how viable is it in this way? And I think that's what makes speculation with Pokemon so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then we have I believe Pau style, which is based on hula dancing, which, yes, we got our hula Pokemon in there.
It was bound to happen.
It had to happen. It was great to see it, and it's interestingly a psychic flying type, and I think Sigilyph is the one that comes to my mind with psychic flying, and I tend to go away because there's so many flying types, and I hate that electric weakness for most of them, so I don't know. I just usually go with normal flying types for my teams, but again, I'm not a competitive player. I'm just talking about the usual single player. But What do you think of Pau being psychic flying?
It's definitely an interesting combination. I mean, psychic is a powerful type. It's not as powerful as it used to be, but it could definitely bring up some interesting stuff. I mean, Sigilyph is a very interesting Pokemon. Zaytu is another interesting psychic flying one. They can do some cool stuff. Lugia, of course. Lugia is, a beast. But I don't know, with flying type moves and psychic type moves, that does give a lot of coverage.
Yeah, it really does. So it could be quite good. Yeah, I mean, especially what it can learn. And like, I'm very curious what their Revelation Dance, like, how strong is that move?
Yeah, if that's the strong move, and then it changes with each style, and it gets Stab, that can potentially be a game changer.
Oh, totally. It's be unreal, especially since it's the only one that can learn it, which would be very interesting to have just a very unique psychic move that only Oricorio could use. And I don't know, I'm very curious about that. And finally, we have Sensu, which I love the fact, like, I get so drawn to the fact that his hands are fans that I actually kind of forget that the fans are hands, because they look so much like the Japanese fan dance, and it's wonderful seeing that sort of thing. And interesting that they decided to go with ghost typing on this one.
Yeah, with like the blue, when people saying, oh yeah, there's like to be a red one, a yellow island, a red island, a blue island. With blue, I would have thought water. And this is as close to blue as it seems we might get if Oricorio's colours are based on the colours of the names of the islands. But Ghost is definitely an interesting type. There's only been two Ghost flying Pokemon, if memory serves. So that's definitely a unique type, near unique typing.
Yeah, it's a rarer typing, to say the least. And yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see exactly what they can pull off. Again, it all comes down to Revelation Dance and what they could do with that. But man, there's so many possibilities with Oricorio. Well, since you brought it up with the colors and the islands, I put forth the idea, and apparently a lot of other people were trying to figure this out as well, since Mele Mele Island was based on the name for yellow in Hawaiian. So a lot of people were like, oh, is it going to be a red, blue, and green island as well? And based on Oricorio and the other stuff we've seen, especially the fact of we actually got another name, which is Akala, and that's pink, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. Instead, it looks like we have the northeastern island being Akala Island, which is, again, pink. Ula Ula Island being red, which is the southeast island, and the southwest island being based on violet or purple, and being Pony Island, which maybe I'm right. I feel pretty confident about this one based on everything I've seen, but what do you think? I know you don't want to come out absolutely sure about anything, but just speculatory. What do you think about this possibility?
I think it's a distinct possibility. There's definitely a theme going on. And if with Oricorio we can perhaps determine that theme, and there is some logic to it. There's definite logic to it, and I could see it happening.
Yeah, there's a scene in the Japanese trailer where I believe the female trainer is heading into what I presume to be lush jungle, and there's like these totems outside. And one thing I just didn't click with my head when I was looking at it is, and people pointed out to me later, is that those totems have these same colors on it. We have yellow, red, pink, and purple. So there's definitely that 4-color scheme going on within Alola quite often.
Yeah, and there was something that the official Japanese Pokemon Twitter tweeted out about like a pendant thing coming from a bag of the trainer. They said, yeah, this pendant's going to be released as merchandise, but that too has yellow, red, pink, and violets on it.
Now that'll be interesting. Like, I wonder what that pendant is. Do you think it... Because, I mean, we're skipping ahead. We're skipping all over the place here, but that's okay. But the Trio Captains, I pointed out, like, a D-pad on Sophocles' belt. And the reason I thought it was a D-pad is because it had the up thing, and he had so much of a gamer electronics vibe to him already, so I'm like, D-pad. But every single Trio Captain has that symbol on them, and they all point up. And do you think that the trainer's pendant has anything to do with that? Is that sort of like how our badges are going to work this time, where you fill in the pendant, or what do you think?
I think so, because I'm going off memory here, but I think it mentioned that the thing on the bag is granted only to people who participate in the challenge, I think. Mm-hmm. Can't be quite certain, memory and all that.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's what it said, so that could definitely be a thing. It could be one which symbolises each island that they're on. That would make sense, and we'll get more in detail into the trial captains later on in the discussion, because, well, there's a lot to talk about there and the potential for them. But let's bring it back, and I think we've pretty much covered Oricorio. It's a very interesting Pokemon. I'm not positive if I'll use it on my team. I gotta look at its stats and how strong Revelation Dance and all that is. But as far as a concept, I love this thing. The interesting thing would be, does it have different learn sets when it levels up? So one is predominantly fire rather than just Revelation Dance, and if so, because it indicates that you might be able to change the form by making it sip nectar, that would mean that each form will have access to each form's attacks. So if that is the case, then you could end up with per hour style having ghost type moves, which could make things even more interesting.
Oh, I didn't even think about that possibility. That would be fascinating, because even though you have like the certain style come out, you're not guaranteed to have just moves of that style will be there. You're missing out on the stab damage, of course, but you can be a bit more devious with what they learn. Man, the potential for Oricorio is massive. It's just, wow.
Yeah. Love
this thing. But next up, we have another very interesting Pokemon, Minior, which is kind of interesting in the fact that it's called the Meteor Pokemon, and it literally is a meteor where it's like lives in the stratosphere, sucking up debris and whatnot, and that determines the color within its body. And that ties into its ability as well, which is Shields Down, which as long as the shields are up, it cannot have any status changes done to it, and it has massive defense. But once you get it down to below half for its HP, the shields will break, and it becomes faster and stronger by the sounds of it. And that's an interesting situational Pokemon.
Yeah, that definitely is. It reminds me of, well, basically Darmanitan and that Zen mode, because once you hit 50%, that changes form. And from what we've learnt of how Zygarde works, with 10% form and 50% form turning into complete form at 50%, it's like, this seems to be a running theme that we're getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I've seen that pop up many times with different Pokemon, and even there's other situations where all of a sudden health matters a lot for what happens with certain Pokemon. It's interesting to see that, like, all of a sudden if they drop below half, all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's on. This is what we're doing now.
Yeah, the hat is turning backwards.
Exactly. It's time to get moving, but I believe Minior is a rock and flying type. Do you think that it has potential just based on the typing and its ability competitively?
I mean, it does seem that way, but we need to know, before we can say for sure, we need to know how much will change when its shields are down. Mm-hmm. If it's an alternate form, you have to know how much do the stats change. Does its type change? Does it lose the rock typing?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I love how it's also like... It's like a secret inside, because you never know what color you're going to have until you break it open.
Yeah. I do like this Pokemon. I really like the concept of it. It is definitely something I am looking forward to playing with. Mm-hmm. I want to see exactly how it works.
And I love how it's sort of this... It's like you first look at it, it's like, what the heck is this thing? Like, my first thought was something related to... Solrock and Lunatone. I was like, man, it kind of looks like them in a way, but then it like breaks up and it's like, oh, it's cute. How'd this thing get cute all of a sudden? That's not right. But no, it's great to see them have surprises in store. just great concepts all around. And I'm curious what they're going to do with Minior.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like a cool Pokemon.
And, well, next up we have Gumshoes. Which...
What a name.
Yeah, I love... This thing, I don't know how often I'll use it, because I don't normally go for the early normal type Pokemon like Rattata and the rest, but Gumshoes is something else. Like, I love its design. I love how it has sort of like the derby cap on its head for the shape of its hair. It always has its arms back. It's like you can pick up so many like detective tropes within this Pokemon, and I'm like, but of course everybody else focuses on the fact that it looks like Trump.
Yeah.
So
that's clearly not the intent.
No, this is definitely more of a detective. It's much more intelligent. Oh boy, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Gumshoes? Because to me, I don't think this guy is going to be that viable as far as late game competition, but it might be a decent one early on.
Yeah, I mean, its abilities are a bit interesting. They're the same as Yungoos. It could be somewhat viable, but standard normal types early on, you don't really get that many good ones. You've got Stoutland, which is somewhat good, but it could be decent, but it's not going to be like a game-changing, oh my god, this thing is amazing sort of Pokemon.
Yeah, I think it stands out just because of its design.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's definitely one of the stronger early normal type designs, and yeah, I love it for it.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Fomantis and Lurantis, which I'm actually kind of surprised these things are both pure grass types, because they feel like they should be grass bug.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm also very surprised, but reading about what they are, I like their concept.
Yeah, I mean, to be so focused on the beauty, and that's the whole reason that Fomantis, sleeps during the day to do all the photosynthesis, excuse me, and really bring out its color and beauty, because apparently Lurantis is considered the most beautiful grass type Pokemon, which is interesting to say. I'm like, I can't really deny that, but I'm also not totally sure on that one.
It's nothing on Serebii, God.
That is true, and I've always I've always enjoyed Blossom. I guess that's more cute than beautiful, but whatever. But no, I mean it's definitely interesting, and it's always good to have more pure grass types rather than adding on that very unnecessary poison type weakness that so many had in the first generation. But I don't think doesn't have any unique abilities, but Lurantis does get a brand new move, which is Solar Blade, which I theorized is likely Solar Beam just with a physical stat rather than the special stat.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, Lurantis does feel more like a much more physical Pokemon. You don't really get that many physical grass types. You've got Sceptile and Sawsbuck, I guess.
Yeah.
Chestnut.
But yeah, it's cool to go more physical route and give it just that move to really emphasize the physicality of this grass Pokemon. And I don't know, just as soon as I heard charges the first turn and the second turn is when it happens, it's like, yeah, this is definitely the physical version of Solar Beam. And move looks awesome, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you probably agree with me in the fact that it likely can take advantage of sunny day in order to fire off the solar blades just in one turn.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be very weird if that didn't happen. I mean, it's basically the same premise as Solar Beam, so if Sunny Day doesn't do that, then something's very weird.
That is true. That is very true. Did anything else stand out about Lurantis to you, or Fomantis?
Not really. I mean, they're nice designs, but they're just not striking me as these are the most incredible things ever.
Yeah.
But you look at them, you think, oh, those are cool Pokemon.
Yeah, get more Mantis types out there. It's always fun to have. But yeah, pretty much like you, where it's like, okay, this looks like a good basic Pokemon. It might surprise me with more, like Solar Blade, but that's about it. So, yeah. Well, next up we have our final new Pokemon is Mudbray, which does confirm that Mudsdale is a final evolution. And Mudbray is its pre-evolution, and we got a donkey Pokemon. I love this thing. Its eyes freak me out, but that's donkeys for you.
It's adorable.
Oh man, it is so cute. It's actually kind of has a dark backstory where it was, according to the Pokemon website, it was hunted to extinction in almost every other region. I'm like, why would you hunt this thing? That's terrible.
Yeah, it's too adorable to hunt.
Seriously. And the fact that it's in a good mood if it gets to play in the mud, it's like, come on, how can you not love this thing?
I'm very happy with this as a concept, as a Pokemon. I mean, obviously, you're going to be using Mudsdale in competitive stuff, and you're going to want a Mudsdale over a Mudbray, but I'm happy with it. It's cute. You're probably not going to ride it.
Probably not. I mean, it does emphasize that it can carry loads, I think, 50 times its own weight, which, is impressive. But obviously, Mudsdale is the star of this whole thing. But to start out with, I feel like it's going to be a pretty decent Pokemon early on until Mudsdale evolves. And do you get a feeling Mudsdale is probably going to be a late evolution, like late 30s, maybe early 40s? As far as
yeah, I do get that feeling. I mean, it does look like it's going to be a powerful Pokemon, and typically the powerful Pokemon have higher evolution levels.
Which, yeah, all sort of fits in, but design-wise, I love this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of riding Pokemon, we have Poké Rides. We see in the trailer roll, our total list of rideable Pokemon so far include Tauros, Sharpedo, Mudsdale, Stoutland, Charizard, and Lapras. And each one seems to have its own unique ability. Tauros can dash and break through rocks. And, I mean, right off the bat, like, that seems to be an HM replacement to me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it could be a bike replacement.
Yeah, it could.
Why would you go on a bike when you've got a Tauros?
That's a very good point. It's like, who cares about the bike? I'm going to call up the Poké Ride and send me a Tauros, and let's get this thing going. And then Sharpedo, of course, you can surf and break through rocks in the water. Mudsdale allows you to go over rocky terrain. Wasn't there another Pokemon?
Rhyhorn. Was Rhyhorn.
Rhyhorn was used
Route
for that
9.
same thing. Yeah. That's it. And Stoutland actually has a very interesting ability where it can sniff out items from the looks of it, which kind of replaces the dowsing machines from the past, which is kind of amazing. And of course, Charizard flies. And the only one I haven't really figured out yet, as far as what it does, is Lapras, other than just the usual surf. And Lapras is actually kind of the linchpin to this, where I think there's some way to determine which Pokemon you get. I don't think all of these Pokemon will be available right off the bat. Where, like, oh, there's rocks in the way, I'm going to call up Tauros. Or there's rocks in this water and I want to get to the other side, I'm going to call up Sharpedo and have no problem. That seems sort of counterintuitive. Like, why would you put those things in the way if you could just call up a Pokemon and take care of it right off the bat? So I can sort of imagine it starting off like you start off with Lapras and you can see these rocks that are blocking the way to other islands, but you can't break through them yet until you somehow unlock the ability to use Sharpedo. And same with like Mudsdale and even Charizard being able to fly wherever. Does that make sense to you as far as like sort of working it in that way as HMs where you sort of unlock more Pokemon to use at the Poké Ride?
Yeah, there's a definite logic to that. I mean, HMs were always used to stop you from exploring too far, getting into the later areas. And so if they were to just give you all the Pokemon for Poké Ride straight out, it wouldn't make sense. There would be no balance, there would be no progression. I mean, there is, like, greatness to having a massively open world where you can do anything. Just look at Zelda Breath of the Wild for that, and that looks amazing. But with Pokemon, you need to have linear open world, so to speak.
Yeah. Like, I like the idea that there's, like, you start out and like, oh, there's this tree I can't cut. I guess I'll have to come back later. Like, there's always that sort of excitement of like, okay, I'm going to come back and re-explore things now that I have stuff opened up and see what I can find. And I mean, if this is doing what it appears to be doing, and that's getting rid of HMs, hallelujah. That is brilliant, because the whole fact that you just, like, these aren't your Pokemon, you just call them in and then they help you get through these obstacles, that's sort of like built-in HM slaves to me.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem like that, and this is something people have been wanting in the games for a very long while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had Rhyhorn, Mamoswine, Skiddo, and Go-Goat in X and Y, where they couldn't really do much. I mean, Rhyhorn broke through blocks, Mamoswine broke through ice, Skiddo could jump over ledges. So that was definitely a definite precursor to this.
Yeah, it feels like they were testing it out, and man, I hope so.
I'm really happy with how this is turning out.
Total agreement, because it also like makes you, I don't know, enthralled with these Pokemon, like being able to ride Tauros. That's, who doesn't want to do that? As you said, like, screw the bike, I want to ride the Tauros. Sharpedo, like having the jet ski again type of that we pointed out before, and now breaking through rocks. That's awesome. Seeing the power of Mudsdale going over these rocks is really cool. And one of the other things I brought up is the fact that you'll likely still have wild encounters, being able to have trainer battles as well, exactly like Surf did back in the day. I love this idea. I love how it's sort of replacing this thing. And I guess the one big question I have from this is Charizard. Do you think he's just there for fly, or do you think there's going to be another Pokemon to allow us to soar? Because I can't imagine Soar being dropped.
No, that clearly felt like we're testing this. We need to use it for something else, but we're testing it. That's how it felt to me. And I would love it if Soar is back.
Absolutely. So, do you think Charizard's going to be the soaring Pokemon, or do you think there's another one that we haven't seen yet? Because one of the big points of soaring was you brought in Latios, and then it Mega Evolved as you were soaring. And so, I mean, it doesn't seem like Charizard's fast enough for that kind of idea, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, it could. I hope it does. I hope all Pokemon you can Poké Ride and fly would allow you to soar, at least. It's tricky. I'm unsure.
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be some way to soar in this game. Whether or not it's locked to specific Pokemon, that's hard to say at the moment. But I guess the only other thing to talk about is, like, it looks like you have this device from the concept art that has this open area. There's sort of like a tablet on it that we can't quite see, but it also has a plug within the open circle, which seems to fit in right with the Pokemon, which gives a sort of a sense of a portable PC just to call in these ride Pokemon. Do you? I guess the only question I have from that is, do you think they'll expand that? Like, yeah, it's for these ride Pokemon, but do you think you'll be able to switch out your own Pokemon at any time, any place, kind of like you're able to with these ride Pokemon? Or do you think it'll still be locked to Pokemon centers and PCs there?
I really don't know. I think, really, they can't really have anything which would break the game. So you'd need to, for your own Pokemon, lock it to Pokemon centers or make it so, oh, there's no signal here.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, with the only reason I think people would want a portable way to switch out your Pokemon, at any time, is because of needing to get out your HM Pokemon. Because usually, if you put an HM on a Pokemon, you don't really plan on using it other than maybe Surf and a few of the others. So by having Poké Ride potentially get rid of HMs entirely, there's less of a need, at least for me personally, to need to switch out my Pokemon so often at the PC.
Yeah, I completely agree. The only other reason people would do it is like, oh, that Pokemon's fainted, I need another one, and that's what would break the game.
Wow, I didn't even think about that potential. Yeah, that would, in that case, yeah, there's no way they'll ever do that, because that'd be so easy to just switch out and kind of ruin the point, of the challenge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do like how the helmets that the trainers are wearing looks like a Hawlucha.
I never noticed that. That's awesome. Oh man, I love Hawlucha so much.
Yes, so do I.
Oh man, it's so cool seeing all the little details they have in there. Just they have like, okay, you got to put on your safety suits now for using these ride Pokemon and going off to do all these different things. But yeah, it's, again, just looking so much fun. And that covers it for part 1 of our Sun and Moon discussion. There was so much to cover that we go on for almost another 50 minutes. You can look forward to parts 2 and 3 tomorrow and the day after, where we'll cover the new Alola Challenge and the Z moves. So thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. Also, be sure to check out more from Joe at Serebii.net. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Pokemon and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.